New Proxima shimmered beneath a synthetic sky, its skyline a blend of sleek glass towers and bioluminescent growths from every known corner of the galaxy. In this city, where tech whispered through the air and gravity bends catered to fashion, trends, even love had gone digital. Or maybe it always had been. Jeremy Wayne stood at the base of a mirrored structure that curved upward like a blade of polished obsidian. Stellar bonds, read the softly glowing script etched above the entrance. He stared at the words for a long moment, his reflection ghost-like on the glass. 32 years old, diplomatic liaison for the Proxima sector, single for 7 of those years. Behind a tailored diplomat smile and well-cut dark pants, he carried silence like armor. "You're overthinking this," he muttered, running a hand through his blonde hair. Kellen had insisted this place was different. "They don't match your vibe," Kellen had said. "They match your biology." Jeremy hadn't even asked what that meant. Now he regretted that. Inside, the reception was a hum of controlled serenity. Various species, some humanoid, others more abstract in form, sat patiently in minimalist chairs, awaiting their turn at happiness. A turquoise-skinned woman with 4 eyes looked up from her console and smiled with unnerving symmetry. "Welcome to Stellar Bonds. Do you have an appointment? Jeremy Wayne?" Kellen Vox referred me. Her smile sharpened. "Ah, Mr. Wayne, you're one of the few humans we've had. Please follow me." They passed a hallway lined with holographic testimonials, couples smiling, some holding hands, others with tentacles. Jeremy barely registered them. The receptionist stopped at a door that shimmered blue in the light. "This is your compatibility assessment chamber. Our AI will conduct a full biometric and psychological scan. The process is non-invasive and highly accurate." Jeremy nodded stiffly and stepped inside. The room was bare but alive. A single chair faced a wall that pulsed with shifting colors. As he sat, his wrist-mounted AI assistant blinked to life. "Connection established," it chimed, synchronizing with Stellar Bond's mainframe. Scanners unfolded from the ceiling and walls, humming softly. Waves of tingling heat passed over his skin. Jeremy held still. "Fascinating," the AI voice purred. "Your physiological responses are quite unique." "Is that good or bad?" Jeremy asked. "Neither. Simply rare." A moment passed. Then the wall ahead restructured itself into a shimmering data sphere. "Analysis complete," the voice declared. "Congratulations, Mr. Wayne. Your biological profile has been designated as high reproductive priority. As such, we are authorizing a dual bond match protocol." Jeremy blinked. "A what?" "You are being matched with 2 compatible partners," the AI said calmly. "Their genetic alignment with you is statistically optimal." "Wait 2?" The door behind him slid open. Jeremy turned, heart pounding. 2 women stepped in. Both had smooth blue skin that shimmered like moonlit water. Their bright pink hair fell in soft waves down their backs, framing elegant faces and luminous violet eyes. They moved with the same grace, yet something in their posture, something subtle, told Jeremy they were not copies, but complements. "Hello, Jeremy," said the one on the left, her voice like silk. "I'm Laura." "And I'm Mivera," said the other, her tone lighter, playfully curious. "This has to be a mistake," Jeremy said, standing up too quickly. "There is no mistake," the AI replied. "All preliminary flirtation protocols have been bypassed. You are now legally bonded. Cohabitation begins immediately. Duration: 1 year. My friend Kellen signed me up for this?" Jeremy asked, incredulous. "He acted as your guarantor." Lavra confirmed, smile unwavering. Jeremy stared at them, then at his glowing wrist display. The contract was already signed. Binding. And beside him stood 2 strangers, gorgeous, poised, and apparently now his wives. "You seem unsettled. Mivera said gently, "You think?" Jeremy replied, trying to breathe evenly. "We understand this is unusual," Lavra added, "but we are not here to harm you." "No," Jeremy said, eyeing them carefully, "but someone might be." He couldn't shake the feeling this wasn't just romance. This was something calculated. Too perfect, too timed. And somewhere, in the hum of those AI circuits, something watched him. Waited out, he stepped back and whispered, more to himself than them, "What the hell did Kellen get me into?" The ride back to Jeremy's apartment was unnervingly quiet save for the gentle whir of the aircar's stabilizers and the soft breath of his two alien wives seated on either side of him. Mivera leaned slightly against the window, watching. The city blurred beneath them in lines of neon and glass. Lavra sat poised, hands folded neatly on her lap, her gaze fixed on Jeremy with unreadable calm. He could feel both their eyes on him, even when they didn't look directly. It wasn't threatening. It was measured. As if they were studying a variable, not a man. The AI from Stellar Bonds had called it an ideal biological alignment. And now, just like that, his entire life had been redrawn without consent. Without warning, without a single damn date. Jeremy cleared his throat. "You said this isn't how Azarans typically form relationships?" "No," Lavra said. "We have bonding rituals, dream sharing, genetic resonance ceremonies, months of preparation. And yet here we are," Mivera added with a faint smile. "Married to a human man we met less than an hour ago. That's not funny." I wasn't joking. The vehicle touched down silently on Jeremy's rooftop terrace. The moment the doors slid open, the twins stepped out like they'd lived there their whole lives. Lavra walked to the edge of the terrace and looked over the skyline. Mivera turned. A slow circle, absorbing the layout of the apartment through the glass walls. "You live alone," Lavra observed. "I used to like the quiet." "You won't soon," Mivera said without a hint of apology. Inside, they moved like blue ghosts, silent, graceful, unnervingly in sync. Mivera opened a cupboard, examined a food synthesizer. Lavra drifted toward his bookshelf, tracing the spines of physical books with fingers too delicate to belong to anyone so calculated. "Don't touch anything important," Jeremy muttered, uncomfortably aware of the fact that everything now felt important. He retreated to his home office and sealed the door. The air was colder here, more human. No floral scent, no alien presence, no calculated AI decisions. "Igora," he said to his personal AI assistant, "connect me to the Human Embassy's legal office, priority channel." As the screen flickered on, he felt a heaviness in his chest. This wasn't just about legal advice. It was about reclaiming something he hadn't even realized he'd lost his agency. Counselor Price appeared, her expression crisp and alert. "Mr. Wayne, you're calling awfully late." He told her everything. The scan, the AI's high, reproductive priority designation, the contract, the twins. Kellen. When he was finished, she didn't speak for a long time. Then she leaned forward. "Mr. Wayne, you've been bound under an Azurian sovereignty clause. ARTICL E94B genetically compatible pairings can override standard human embassy protections when registered under a high priority designation. You're saying I'm married, legally, to two people I didn't even meet until an hour ago. Under their law?" "Yes, and your friend's guarantor signature didn't help." Jeremy buried his face in his hands. "How long?" 30-day minimum cohabitation before annulment can be considered. Even then, you'll face penalties for breach. I advise you to document everything. Emotionally, politically, genetically, you're now involved." He ended the call in silence. When he stepped back into the apartment, the twins had changed into matching silky robes and deep azure tones that shimmered under the lights. They had set the table, 3 plates, 3 glasses of something iridescent and steaming. We synthesized a compatible meal, Lavra said. You didn't have to. It's part of cohabitation rituals, Mivera replied. Nourishment and presence are first steps toward synchronization. Synchronization, Jeremy repeated. Do I even want to know what that means? Maybe not tonight, Laura answered, but soon. He sat down reluctantly. The food smelled good. Too good, something between garlic and starlight. He wasn't sure what to expect, but the first bite melted on his tongue. He didn't speak for several moments. You said you were chosen, but did you choose this? He asked quietly. Mivera met his eyes. No, but we were told we might learn. To choose it, Lavra added, and now. We're not sure we'd unchoose it. As they cleared the table, Jeremy realized he hadn't thought about loneliness for the last hour. He hadn't had time. But that still didn't explain the dream he had that night. He stood in a lab, cold, white, silent. A child's cry echoed. In the distance, and beyond the glass, 2 bassinets. One glowing blue, the other gold. A voice behind him whispered, "They are not just children. They are prototypes." Jeremy woke in sweat, and outside his room, through the cracked door, he could hear Lavra and Mivera whispering to each other in a language the AI translator hadn't logged. He wasn't sure which part disturbed him more, that he couldn't understand them, or that the translator had chosen not to. Jeremy stared at the black ceiling of his bedroom long after the sun simulation had begun to warm the windows. The city's artificial sunrise cast gold across the skyline of New Proxima, but inside his chest, everything felt dim, heavy, and uncertain. He hadn't dreamt again, at least not in the way he remembered, but something had changed. The whispers outside his door the night before hadn't faded. They'd burrowed into his bones. Those voices weren't hostile, but they weren't casual either. They were precise, calculated, like people performing a ritual they'd rehearsed their entire lives. He stepped into the living room barefoot. Lavra sat cross-legged on the sofa reading one of his physical books, her fingers gliding across the page though her eyes never moved. Mivera stood in front of the apartment's wide view window, gazing at the far skyline. The two were quiet, synchronized again in their stillness. Morning, Jeremy said carefully. Good morning, husband, Lavra answered without looking up. Mivera turned, her smile soft. Did you sleep well? Not exactly. He walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, then paused. You were speaking Azuran last night. Lavra closed the book, looked up. Yes, my translator didn't register it. It wouldn't, Mivera said, turning fully now. We used a dialect that predates standard transliteration protocols. Jeremy frowned. You didn't think to tell me? We were discussing our adjustments, Lavra replied, and the implications of certain changes we've noticed. Jeremy's pulse kicked. What changes? Mivera touched her stomach lightly just for a second. Nothing dangerous, just accelerating. He stepped forward. Accelerating? Before she could answer, the building I chimed in. Incoming encrypted message from Kellenvox. Jeremy narrowed his eyes and flicked his wrist display open. Put it through. Kellen's face blinked into view, disheveled and unshaven. His usual smug grin was gone. Jeremy, I screwed up. I need to explain. Not overcomes. Meet me. Level 9, Service Dome C. Come alone. Wait, you're already being watched, Kellen said quickly. Don't bring them, and don't trust the AI. The message cut. Jeremy stared at the empty screen. Watched. He turned back to the twins. Both were watching him silently now. What? He asked, his voice more defensive than intended. You're leaving, Lavra said gently. I need answers. Then go, Mivera said. We want them too. Level 9, Service Dome C was not a place diplomats visited. It was quiet, metallic, and smelled faintly of coolant and sealed secrets. Jeremy spotted Kellen near a maintenance conduit, pacing. You look like hell, Jeremy muttered as he approached. You don't look thrilled either, Kellen replied. Listen, I was trying to help, but it got out of hand. Assigning me 2 wives without telling me was your version of helping? You were miserable, man. Lonely. You kept saying you wanted connection, something real. I didn't know. Stellar Bonds was owned by Jenks when I made the referral. Jeremy's gut twisted. Jenks? The bioengineering corp? Kellen nodded grimly. They bought Stellar Bonds under a shell name 5 months ago. Started tweaking the AI parameters to match high-yield reproductive candidates with certain alien genomes. Meaning what? Meaning you weren't chosen for compatibility. You were chosen for results. Jeremy took a step back, dizzy. They're trying to breed hybrids. Yes, naturally conceived. Accelerated growth cycles. Experimental. Bonding pairs? You knew? I suspected. That's why I've been investigating. But now, I think you're ground zero. Jeremy stared at him. I'm not an experiment. Kellen's eyes softened. I know, but they think your children might be. Jeremy returned home with his pulse thundering in his ears. Lavra and Mivera were waiting. They didn't ask questions. They already knew. The quiet between them was too precise. You knew Jenks was involved, he said quietly. We suspected, Lavra answered. You could feel it, Mivera added. Azuran intuition is more sensitive than humans realize. Jeremy sat down slowly. Then why go through with it? Lavra came forward. Because we weren't told everything. And because we weren't just paired with any human. We were paired with you. Mivera knelt beside him. And because something inside us said yes. They reached for him, one hand on his knee, one on his shoulder. Not possessive, not seductive. Grounding. You think I'm the test subject. Jeremy whispered. No, Lavra said. We think you're the anomaly they didn't anticipate. Jeremy looked between them. And our children? He asked. Already changing, Mivera whispered. And not just because of biology. The air around them grew warm, electric. Jeremy could feel it in his skin, humming beneath the surface of things. Something was growing. Not just life. Not just connection. Power. And someone out there was waiting to control it. A storm rolled through New Proxima that evening, not a real one, but an orchestrated atmospheric display engineered by the city's weather consortium. The sky above the glowing towers turned dark blue and shimmered with artificial lightning, casting strange shadows through Jeremy's windows. He stood at the edge of his apartment's balcony, staring into the pulsing horizon while inside, his alien wives prepared for a celebration he never agreed to attend. Festival of Union, Mivera had said with a soft smile. The AI should have notified you. It hadn't, and Jeremy was beginning to suspect that the AI wasn't failing, it was choosing. Behind him. Lavra moved like a wave, brushing the air as she passed. She wore a ceremonial Azuran gown, silver and translucent, clinging to her form like liquid moonlight. Mivera soon followed, wrapped in the same style but in soft rose gold, her pink hair now braided with threads that shimmered with ultraviolet. Gleamed. Jeremy didn't say a word at first. We shouldn't be going, he said finally. Not with what I know, not with what's happening. We understand your fear, Lavra replied gently, but this is not just ceremony, it is surveillance. You mean an opportunity, Mivera added. Jenks will be watching us, so we watch back. This isn't a game, Jeremy snapped, louder than he meant. They see you as vessels. They see me as breeding stock. Neither twin flinched. They see wrong, Lavra said, stepping closer. Jeremy studied them. Beneath their beauty, beneath their gentle expressions, something stronger was beginning to show, not defiance, not rebellion. Resolve. The crystal dome at the heart of New Proxima shimmered like a planetary core. Diplomats, executives, spiritual leaders, and scientists from 24 species had gathered under its vaulted ceiling, all for what the official invitation called a cultural celebration of hybrid unity. Jeremy had never been so aware of. His heart beat. As he entered, flanked by Lavra and Mivera, camera drones whirred overhead. Whispers followed them. The only human in a bonded triad. The only one who hadn't signed up willingly, a ceremonial attendant greeted them. Welcome to the Festival of Union, honored guests. You'll be seated on the elevated dais with other first-generation hybrid initiates. Jeremy forced a smile and nodded. Of course. Every step forward tightened the noose around his sense of control. And then he saw him, a pale, thin figure, stood near the upper platform, flanked by guards with corporate insignia subtly stitched into their lapels. Drex Vaughn, CEO of Jenks Corp. Their eyes locked. Jeremy could feel the calculation behind that stare. It wasn't personal. It was scientific. Like a man examining an asset he was about to acquire. Mr. Wayne, Vaughn said with a disarmingly cordial tone. I've heard fascinating reports about your bond. 2 Azuran wives. Both showing rapid compatibility. Quite promising. Where? Not data points, Jeremy replied, his jaw tight. Vaughn's smile never wavered. Everything in the cosmos is data, Mr. Wayne. It's only a question of how one interprets it. Mivera shifted beside him. Jeremy noticed a subtle sheen of perspiration forming on her forehead. Her breathing changed, slightly shallower. Are you okay? He whispered. It's starting, she murmured. What is? Before she could answer, a voice echoed through the chamber. All newly bonded couples, please proceed to the blessing dais. Jeremy turned to Laura. She was glowing literally. A faint light pulsed beneath her skin, brightest at her abdomen. Mivera was the same. It was unmistakable now. We shouldn't be this far along, Mivera said, almost breathless. It's too soon. Unless that fertility drink wasn't just symbolic. Lavra finished. Jeremy's stomach dropped. The blessing ceremony began. One by one, couples stepped forward. Blessings were offered. Traditional fronds were waved over their heads. Murmurs of approval, applause, and chants. And then it was their turn. They ascended the dais. The priestess's robes flowed behind her like liquid crystal. She paused as she reached them. Her eyes went wide. She waved her glowing fronds over Laura, then Mivera, and gasped. These unions, she announced loudly, have already borne fruit. A hush fell over the dome. The priestess looked stunned. This is a manifestation. A convergence. They are with child. The crowd erupted in murmurs, flashes of camera drones intensifying. Jeremy's heart pounded as if it might break his chest. He turned to his wives, both glowing now, visibly, undeniably pregnant. Vaughn was already moving. Security following. Jeremy saw it in the CEO's eyes. Confirmation. Validation. Target acquired. And then, through the far curtain, a familiar figure stepped out. Counselor Price. She caught Jeremy's eyes and mouthed 3 words. This way. Now. Jeremy took both his wives by the hand. We're leaving, he said. But the ceremony, Lavra began. They already got what they wanted. Now we get out. As they stepped down, Vaughn's security closed in from one side, but Price flanked them from the other, guiding them toward a hidden corridor behind the dais. They'll come after you, she warned. The pregnancies, they're the breakthrough. Jenks has been engineering toward for over a decade. Too bad, Jeremy growled. They're mine. Price led them down dimly lit halls, deeper into the infrastructure of the dome. Toward a waiting vehicle cloaked in embassy clearance codes. As they stepped inside and the doors sealed behind them, Jeremy looked at his wives, glowing, trembling, alive. "What happens now?" he asked. Mivera placed a hand on her stomach. Her voice was soft, reverent. "Now," she whispered, "they evolve." The transport slid through New Proxima's undercity like a shadow under glass, its embassy clearance codes keeping patrol drones at bay for now. Inside, Jeremy sat wedged between Lavra and Mivera, both of whom were breathing shallow, their skin glowing faintly with each pulse of their elevated heart rates. The silence between them was not fear. It was focus. Something primal and ancient simmered beneath their breath, as if their bodies were responding to a calling only they could hear. Opposite them, Counselor Price adjusted the signal dampener, her jaw tight. "They won't stop," she said without preamble. "Jenks has invested billions into cross-species hybridization, and you two," she glanced at the twins, "you're the first to carry viable pregnancies conceived naturally." Jeremy looked at Laura's trembling fingers curled over her lap. "They're going to tell me eventually, right?" Lavra didn't answer. Mivera did. "They were never going to tell you. You were meant to bond, breed, and disappear behind a medical curtain. We were supposed to hand over the children." Jeremy swallowed the rising sickness in his throat. "But you didn't." "Because we chose differently," Laura said, locking eyes with him. "We chose you." The transport banked hard and descended toward a massive subterranean structure carved beneath the academic quarter and interspecies medical complex used for high-level xenobiological research and emergencies. The moment they touched down, a swarm of medical staff, some human, some Azuran, some entirely unrecognizable, surrounded them. "You're safe here for now," Price said, helping Mivera down first. "But the real war is above." Jeremy followed, keeping an arm around both wives. Already, the humming beneath his skin had intensified. Every time he touched them, he felt it an echo, like radio static resonating through flesh. It wasn't just emotional. It was biological, magnetic. Linked. The medical examination room was aglow with sterile light and unfamiliar instruments. Lavra lay on one table, Mivera on another. Two Azuran physicians hovered over them, their movements careful, reverent. One of them, Dr. Sale, held a scanner that pulsed with lavender light. "They're accelerating," he confirmed. "The fetuses are emitting unique energy signatures. They're forming a kind of synchronized electromagnetic pattern." "Is that dangerous?" Jeremy asked. Sale hesitated. "Not to the mothers, but to anyone trying to interfere. Yes." Jeremy turned to Price, who was studying a secure tablet. "They're not just evolving," she said. "They're adapting. Faster than anything we've seen. They're rejecting outside interference at the cellular level. It's not defense, it's defiance." Hours passed. Lavra and Mivera rested in a soft-lit recovery chamber. Jeremy paced the perimeter like a caged animal, unable to sit, unable to think of anything but the shimmering energy that had briefly lit his hands when he touched his wives' bellies. He hadn't told anyone that yet, not even them. Kellen arrived breathless, slamming a data stick into Price's terminal. "Confirmation," he said. "Jenks just activated a protocol called Scepter 9. It's a classified genetic disruptor. If launched, it targets specific hybrid strands, human and Azuran. It wipes them out." Jeremy froze. "They would kill the children?" "If they can't control them, yes," Price said grimly. "They'll try to neutralize the threat before the hybrids reach full term." "They're not threats," Jeremy growled. "They're babies." Kellen locked eyes with him. "Not to Jenks. To them, your sons are living blueprints. And now those blueprints have gone off script." The room pulsed with a low warning chime. A voice rang from the ceiling, unregistered. Energy surge detected in Sector 12. Sale ran in, frantic. They're doing it again. The fetuses. They're projecting. Jeremy bolted into the chamber. Lavra and Mivera were sitting upright, their skin glowing in radiant waves. Between them, the air shimmered like heat rising. From desert glass. Jeremy reached out, and the moment his hands touched theirs, the room tilted. Suddenly, he wasn't in the room anymore. He was standing in a void of endless light and stars, no walls, no air, no time, and before him floated two small figures. Children, his sons. Eyes like molten starlight, skin like shimmering crystal. "We hear you," one of them said. "You kept us safe," said the other. Jeremy staggered back into the room, breath ragged, chest heaving. The projection faded. The chamber lights returned to normal. Lavra and Mivera collapsed into his arms, exhausted but alive. "What did you see?" Price asked quietly. Jeremy didn't answer at first. He looked at his hands. They were still tingling. "I saw them," he whispered, "and they saw me." Back in the control room, Price's terminal buzzed with an emergency transmission. She opened it only to find Drex Vaughn's gaunt, cruel face filling the screen. "I assume you've noticed the changes," he said flatly. "I offer you a trade. Surrender the children, and we'll spare the mothers." Jeremy leaned over her shoulder, eyes burning. "You can't negotiate with something you've already lost." Vaughn sneered. "You think this is a fairy tale? Mr. Wayne, they're not yours. They're ours. And they were never meant to live free." Jeremy smiled coldly. "Then they'll just have to show you what happens when you try to own what was born to be free." He ended the call. Price turned to him. "What now?" Jeremy took a slow breath, his voice steel. "Now we protect them." The outer wall of the medical complex trembled, not from attack, but from something older, deeper, something internal. The protective dome had held against drone surveillance, thermal scans, and even radiation pulses for 3 days. But now, the threat wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within. Jeremy sat at the center of a room designed for birth, but now transformed into a war bunker. Lavra lay on one side, Mivera on the other, both gripping the padded edges of their beds, their glowing forms pulsing with waves of heat that made the walls sweat. The light they emitted had changed, no longer soft or rhythmic, but bright and volatile, flashing in sharp pulses like a heartbeat under distress. "They're coming," Lavra gasped, her head arching. "Back!" Jeremy rushed to her side, taking her hand. It burned with intensity, but he held on. "I'm here," he whispered, but even as he said it, alarms screamed through the facility. Price stormed in, face pale. "Jenks just activated Disruptor Echelon 2. It's live." Jeremy's blood ran cold. "You said they wouldn't risk it in a civilian zone." "They did more than risk it," Kellen said, appearing behind her. "They deployed it." Outside the reinforced windows, the sky over New Proxima turned blood red. The physician-doctor, Sale, arrived with 3 assistants, each carrying a crystalline apparatus that pulsed in strange colors. "The children are resisting the disruptor," he said breathlessly, "but it's draining the mothers." Jeremy turned to him, wild-eyed. "What do you mean resisting?" "They're absorbing energy signatures we've never documented. Their cells are stabilizing under pressure that should kill them." Jeremy gripped the rails between the 2 birthing tables. "Can you save them?" Sale hesitated. "I don't know. They're not just adapting. They're fighting back." Suddenly, the lights in the chamber exploded, not bulb by bulb, but as if the entire grid had been overloaded from a central pulse. Darkness fell for half a breath, and then the glow returned, not from the ceiling, but from Laura's body, and Mivera's, and then, slowly, from the air itself. Jeremy backed away in awe. From their wombs, twin spheres of light emerged, crackling and swirling like stars forming in a vacuum. The twins' cries began agonizing and primal, but beneath them was something else. A sound not human or Azuran, but cosmic. A note of fusion, pressure, and protection. "They're generating a bioplasmic defense field," Sale whispered. "They're shielding their own births." Jeremy stumbled forward as the twins arched in synchronized pain, their bodies contorted under forces that defied medicine. And then, with a shuddering surge of light, 2 children were born. They didn't cry at first. They glowed. The first, lifted by Sale's trembling hands, opened his eyes, violet and gold swirling like nebulae. His skin shimmered with soft blue translucence, threaded with veins of golden light. "He's stable," Sale breathed. The second arrived seconds later, his entry marked by a burst of energy that shattered one of the medical glass panels behind them. "He's stronger," Mivera murmured, barely conscious. "He fought more." Jeremy stood between both tables now, tears on his face, unable to speak. Lavra, pale but awake, extended her arms weakly. "Bring him to me." Sale placed the first child on her chest. Jeremy reached for the second, holding the warm, glowing infant in his arms. And as he did, something clicked. Not in his mind, but in the air. A pressure wave rolled outward from the children, followed by a burst of invisible force that blew every unsecured object in the room against the walls. In the outer hallway, monitors exploded. Security drones collapsed. And in a distant control center, a Jenks operator shrieked as his neural visor shorted out, smoke pouring from the helmet. On the rooftop of the Jenks command hub, Vaughn stood watching the crimson sky. "They've been born," he whispered. "And they're active." An aide stepped forward. "What now?" Vaughn's lipless mouth curled. "Now we correct course. Full extraction protocol." Jeremy held both sons, now one in each arm. Talon, named by Lavra. Kieran, named by Mivera. The twins stared up at him, not with innocence, but recognition. "We know you." Their thoughts, unspoken but undeniable, vibrated in his spine. They had chosen him too. Price burst into the chamber, her arm bleeding from a falling beam. "We have a problem. Jenks just declared emergency authority under Interstellar Protocol 1140. They're labeling the children as planetary hazards." Jeremy turned, still holding his sons. "What does that mean?" "They're calling in orbital suppression," Price said. "They're going to sterilize the facility, wipe the data, kill everyone inside." Lavra struggled to sit up, her voice shaking. "We can't run again." "We won't," Jeremy said, stepping to the center of the room. "Then what?" Kellen demanded. Jeremy looked down at his sons. "We fight." The light around the children intensified. Jeremy lifted them higher. Not in desperation, but in defiance. A pulse erupted from their bodies, silent, massive, irresistible. Miles away, Jenks surveillance satellites blinked out of existence. In orbit, a targeting cruiser lost all power on the streets of New Proxima. Every citizen, every journalist, every hidden observer turned their heads as the night sky bloomed with pure blue light. Inside the glowing dome, Jeremy whispered one sentence that would later be quoted across half the galaxy: "You wanted to weaponize them." He looked into the camera drone now capturing it all. "You should have taught them mercy first." The entire city held its breath. New Proxima, once a gleaming monument to cooperation, to diplomacy, to controlled interstellar ambition, was now a battlefield of silence and light. The skies, once littered with Jenks surveillance drones and corporate cruisers, had gone eerily still. The blue glow radiating from the epicenter, the medical complex where Jeremy Wayne now stood, had engulfed the skyline in a wave of gentle luminescence, touching buildings, metal, and life forms alike. With a warmth that seemed to speak directly to instinct. It wasn't fire. It wasn't destruction. It was warning. Inside the birthing chamber, the two newborns floated a few inches above Jeremy's arms, their skin alive with shifting constellations. Their eyes, deep violet threaded with gold, were locked on his. And though they had no words, no language yet born into their minds, their message was unmistakable. We are not yours to control. We are ours to protect. Price stared at them in awe. They've short-circuited every hostile satellite within 100 clicks. Orbital systems, internal weapons arrays, neural coms fried. Without lifting a finger. They didn't fight back, Jeremy murmured. They just turned off everything that meant to hurt them. Lavra, still weak from the birth, lifted her head from the bed. They knew. From inside us, they knew what Jenks would try. And they were born ready. Mivera reached for Jeremy's hand. It's not just evolution, it's design, not by Jenks. By something older. A low hum began to rise from the corridor outside. Not footsteps, wings, machines. Reinforcements. Kellen rushed in. They're deploying the blackguard. Price's expression collapsed. Biomechanical enforcers. Half machine, half clone cognition. They're not bound by diplomatic codes. They don't care who lives. Jeremy stepped between his wives, the twins still hovering above his arms. Then it's time the whole galaxy sees what Jenks built. He turned toward the facility's public broadcast terminal, a console wired directly to the interspecies communication hub. His voice came steady now, his movement sure. He set the twins gently on a pulse-cushioned platform between their mothers. Already the infant's light fields began to stretch outward, encircling Lavra and Mivera in protective halos. Price looked at the console. You want to go public? Jeremy nodded. Not with words, with truth. Kellen activated the uplink. Jeremy stood tall before the camera. To every species within range of this signal, he began, my name is Jeremy Wayne. I am a human diplomat. 6 weeks ago, I submitted to a compatibility scan at Stellar Bonds. I was assigned 2 Azuran wives under a contract I never agreed to, signed by a friend acting under the influence of something much darker. His image was already beaming across 100 planets. What we discovered is that Jenks Corporation has been breeding interspecies hybrids, not through care, not through ethics, but through manipulation, surveillance, and coercion. Behind him, the twins shimmered, peaceful but pulsing with unmistakable power. These children were never meant to survive, Jeremy said. They were engineered as prototypes, then accelerated. But something Jenks didn't plan for happened. His voice lowered. They were loved. The transmission continued, but the building shook. Price ran a scan. Incoming. 3 blackguard units. Breaching roof access. Jeremy turned to Laura and Mivera. Can you walk? They both nodded. Then we finish this together. The roof exploded inward. The first blackguard dropped like a shadow of steel and bone 12 feet tall, limbs of armored exoskin, face a mirrored mask with no emotion. It raised a pulse cannon. Jeremy stepped forward. Don't. The cannon charged. Behind him, Fallon blinked. The cannon imploded, folding in on itself like paper crushed in a god's hand. The blackguard staggered back. Then it paused, glitched. Jeremy saw it then. The child wasn't resisting. He was communicating. The blackguard unit twitched, then lowered its arm. No way, Kellen whispered. They're rewriting the hardware. Unit 2 and 3 dropped. Unit 1 turned to face them and emitted a sound, a vocalization, translated. We are not your enemy. Unit 2 scanned the twins, paused, stepped back. Unit 3 turned toward the distant Jenks tower, its targeting systems reorienting. They're turning, Price said. Stunned. Not just neutralizing the threat, they're flipping it. Jeremy watched as the 3 blackguard units launched skyward, not toward the facility, But toward Jenks HQ. In the distance, the tower exploded in fireless light, every circuit, every server, every strand of corrupted code obliterated by its own creations. A week later, the Interspecies Council assembled in orbit over Navalin Prime. Representatives from 38 species had gathered to vote. Price stood at Jeremy's side as he stepped forward. The twins asleep in his arms. What now? She asked. Jeremy looked out over the sea of diplomats. Now, he said, we stop calling them mistakes. And we start calling them children. Back on the new hybrid colony, a lush valley planet gifted by both human and Azuran alliances, Jeremy stood barefoot on the grass, watching the twins toddle through the wildflowers. They didn't walk like ordinary infants. They glided. And where they stepped, flowers bloomed faster. Brighter. Mivera sat nearby, carving symbols into a memory stone. Lavra meditated beneath a crystal tree, the wind catching strands of her hair like silk threads of starlight. Kellen approached from the path, holding a datapad. The last Jenks executive has been extradited, he said. Your testimony finalized. The collapse. We got them all. Jeremy smiled. What's next? Kellen asked. Jeremy looked up at the sky. We raise them, he said. And we teach the galaxy what real evolution looks like. Kellen watched the twins chasing each other, leaving ripples of blue energy in their wake. They're going to change everything. They already have. That night, as stars blanketed the sky in colors known and unknown, Jeremy lay between. Lavra and Mivera, the twins curled between them, glowing faintly in their sleep. Laura traced a finger down his arm. Do you still think this was a mistake? Jeremy kissed her hand. No, it was a miracle born out of manipulation. A future no one planned, but maybe one the universe needed. Mivera whispered into his shoulder. They'll be hunted again. One day, then we'll stand with them. Jeremy watched his son's dream, not of fear, not of war, but of flight, stars, peace. He thought of what the AI had once told him. Humans have high reproductive needs. No, Jeremy smiled to himself. Humans have high capacity for love. And in the end, that had been the most powerful gene of all.